Imagine that you are a high school student who is about to start freshman year, and it's your time to make friends. But even though you've played a lot of dating games, you don't even dare to talk to your classmates who think you're the weird girl in the class, and you'll do whatever it takes to be popular. Tomoko Kuroki, often on the computer and popular with guys, is excited to start high school soon, expecting to be more popular and distance from non-popular girls. Non-popular girls lack. Tomoko is excited because in just a month she will start high school and will be even more popular, completely distancing herself from all the non-popular girls. For those who don't know, popusless girls are defined as those who lack social expression with men, those who have never confessed, and those who have never had relationships. Well, our protagonist is totally the opposite, or at least that's what she believes. During her 3 years of middle school, the boys have only talked to her 6 times, and those were always just questions about homework. When she dropped her eraser, a boy would pick it up 1 out of 3 times just out of kindness. Plus, there have been times when the boys wanted to approach her, but only when they forgot their history book and needed someone to help them. When she dropped her eraser, a boy would pick it up 1 out of 3 times just out of kindness. And also repeatedly, the boys have wanted to approach her, but only when they forgot their history book and needed someone to help them. And if she was already popular in middle school, she'll be even more so when she starts high school. 3 years filled with puberty, where all her wishes are fulfilled by the boys without her having to lift a finger. And in dating simulators, she has already spent 50 years in high school and has gone on dates with over 100 guys. There's nothing more that the simulations can teach her. Tomoko is ready to unleash her full potential as a popular girl. But things don't go as well as she had planned, because after 2 months of starting high school, our protagonist still hasn't talked to any other students and doesn't understand why. The reality is that she is a strange, shy girl with bags under her eyes and a somewhat gloomy demeanor. Tomoko tries not to panic, as there's still time for her to make friends and go on dates. However, she listens to her classmates chatting about how much fun they've had at their gatherings, and she can't help but let that affect her. In an act of protecting her ego, Tomoko claims that girls only hang out with awkward guys to feel better about themselves, and that guys prefer the easy ones, so both are despicable. In that context, it's better to be alone, and anyone would think so, but Tomoko isn't alone. Of course, Tomoko enjoys her own company and her manga, since only the easy girls wear makeup and short skirts to attract boys. She's okay with her loneliness. At the end of the class, the teacher reminds them that the exams are coming up. Tomoko thinks to herself that she needs to make an effort and give a good first impression, so that all the boys and girls will come to her for help. As she leaves high school, Tomoko hears students organizing themselves to get together to study, or on the contrary, deciding to skip classes to go on dates, and all she can think is that she wishes the world would just end. Tomoko walks through the school hallways without receiving a single glance. When her teacher greets her kindly, Tomoko gives him a nervous and gloomy look and runs away without responding, wondering why people don't approach her. At home, Tomoko feels bad for reacting that way, but she realizes that it's been so long since she's talked to anyone other than her family that she's lost the ability to socialize. Later, she plays her dating video games as usual, where she has incredible success with the boys. So, she decides to change her clothes, 3 sizes bigger, and put on the school uniform like all the girls, a short skirt and a tight shirt. However, when she sees herself in the mirror, she can't help but vomit on the floor of her room, as it's been years since she last looked in a mirror, and her reflection has caused her a huge shock. In a whirlwind of negative thoughts, Tomoko starts to wonder if she really is pretty. Maybe not pretty, but she can't be ugly, although that would explain why the boys don't pay attention to her. Tomoko comes to realize that her eyes are lost due to stress and an unhealthy lifestyle. So if she can do something about her eyes, her life in high school will be much more fun. So she decides to put on her dad's glasses and realizes that the dark circles have disappeared, and now she looks much prettier. In a burst of excitement, Tomoko searches the internet for all the possible ways to be prettier and more feminine, and she puts each one into practice. That's why, when her brother arrives, Tomoki runs into the ugliest girl she has ever seen in her life. After Tomoki's comment, Tomoko realizes that she needs to put her appearance aside and focus on her ability to socialize. Her first victim will be Tomoki, but no matter how hard our protagonist tries, it's clear that Tomoki is even more antisocial than she is. After continuously rejecting her and after some manipulations that include playing dead, Tomoki feels sorry for his sister and agrees to talk to her for a while every day until she gets a boyfriend. After the exams, Tomoko still hasn't made any friends. At the exit, the teacher is at the school door, and Tomoko decides to say goodbye, nervously. She manages to do it and feels happy, so she decides to reward herself. In the store, a handsome guy serves her, and Tomoko says 2 words to him, feeling proud, and takes a detour home to enjoy her luck. First, she visits a manga store, reads 20 volumes until it's too much. At the store, a super handsome guy serves her, and Tomoko manages to say 2 words to him, so on her way out, she congratulates herself and decides to take a detour on her way home to make the most of her good luck. The first place she visits is a manga store, where she ends up reading 20 volumes until she realizes that it's been too much even for her. So she decides to go eat at a fast food place, and with great difficulty she manages to order a hamburger. Tomoko is incredibly excited as she takes her first bite because she didn't remember that hamburgers could taste so good. As she finishes, she enjoys her great day of social successes when she sees her classmates sitting down to eat in the same restaurant. Tomoko can only think that if they see her there alone, they'll laugh at her, and she has no way to escape without being noticed, so she decides to change her appearance enough so that they won't recognize her. As she passes by the group of boys, she thinks she has won the battle. However, on the stairs, she runs into her brother, who hates seeing her there, but he decides to pretend he doesn't notice. As Tomoko is about to continue on her way, she hears one of her friends, who also didn't recognize her, say that she's one of the ugliest girls he's ever seen in his life. Feeling sad, Tomoko decides to go to the swings while she berates herself for everything she's done in her life, and after a while, her brother approaches and offers to walk home together. Tomoko is startled when her phone starts ringing, as it's not something that happens regularly. Upon seeing that it's Yonaru's, she feels more relaxed than one would expect. Yu is her otaku friend from high school, and she hasn't seen him since graduation. Yu asks her if they can meet up on Saturday, and Tomoko accepts the invitation, although since they haven't seen each other in so long, he's probably going to ask her how things are going in high school, and that's not something our protagonist wants to talk about. Tomoko decides that it doesn't matter what happened in the past, but rather what she will do in the present. She decides to start doing things in high school so she has something to talk about with Yu. To start the day off better, she decides to have double the breakfast she usually eats. However, after walking a few blocks, she realizes that having a double breakfast wasn't the best idea she's ever had. In class, her stomach growls because she's empty after vomiting. She eats lunch early during a break, hoping to make friends by eating cutely. She quickly takes 2 bites, but no one notices. Back in class, classmates comment on the food smell and tease the early eater, embarrassing Tomoko. Although at first she thinks everyone will laugh at her, she then thinks that maybe they'll see her eating cutely and she'll make friends. So she quickly takes 2 bites, hoping someone will come up to her, but it seems like no one has even noticed her. When they return to class, 2 classmates make comments about the smell of food in the classroom and tease whoever had lunch so early, which makes Tomoko feel really embarrassed. Later she hears that in art class they might have to draw each other in pairs, and just thinking about everything that entails causes Tomoko a lot of anxiety, which manifests as physical discomfort and forces her to go to the nurse's office. There, she realizes that there's a boy sleeping in the bed next to hers, and she gets flustered thinking that she's been sleeping next to a boy during the day. Then she thinks that when she tells Yu about this, her friend will be shocked because she's an innocent girl who feels uncomfortable in these kinds of situations. While thinking about this, he goes up the stairs where he sees a boy and a girl flirting and talking about getting together at one of their houses. Tomoko feels jealous. She tries to peek under a skirt but stops, not wanting to be a pervert. Luckily, no one sees her, and though much happened, it fades when she remembers the panties. When she realizes what she's doing, she stops looking under the skirt because she doesn't want to be a pervert. She just wanted to know what kind of underwear a girl with a boyfriend wears. Fortunately, no one has seen her, and even though she feels like a lot happened that day, everything fades away when she remembers the girl's panties. 4 days later, Tomoko daydreams about being deflowered. The thought causes her stomach pain, making her decide against it. Tomoko and a boy are called for skipping art class. They must finish their portrait. As they walk, Tomoko considers talking to him but fears giving the wrong impression. Her thoughts are interrupted when he follows her, embarrassing her. Tomoko and a boy are called for skipping art class. They must stay to finish their portraits. The boy looks older. As they walk, Tomoko thinks about talking to him but worries about impressions. He mistakenly follows her to class, embarrassing her. After class, they go to drawing class, where he quickly finishes and leaves. As they walk to class, Tomoko considers talking to the boy since they'll be together after class, but fears giving the wrong impression. Her thoughts are cut off when the boy admits he followed her to his class, embarrassing her. After class, they go to drawing class, where the boy finishes his drawing quickly and leaves. Upset, Tomoko makes a simple, ugly portrait of him. She then checks his drawing of her and is delighted, asking the principal for a copy. After class, they both head to the drawing class and the boy finishes his drawing in 2 seconds and leaves. Tomoko gets upset and draws an ugly portrait of her classmate. She checks the boy's drawing, is delighted, and asks for a copy. On Saturday, Tomoko waits for her friend. She's shocked too. Saturday arrives, and Tomoko nervously waits for her friend. She's shocked and even feels inferior when she sees that Yu is no longer the nerdy girl she used to know. Now she's a beautiful young woman wearing a mini skirt. But those thoughts fade away when Yu starts talking about anime, and Tomoko realizes she's the same as always, someone she can talk to for hours. Seeing that Yu misses spending time with her, Tomoko decides not to tell her about her experiences with the boy from the nurse's office, and instead spends the afternoon like they used to in middle school. After spending a lovely day together, they both say goodbye. Tomoko ends up confessing that she's not doing well in high school, but she's still trying, so she hopes Yu will do the same. Yu thanks her and feels silly for being down about fighting with her first boyfriend, but when she hears the word boyfriend, she feels disappointed and humiliated, so she puts on her headphones and listens to music to block out Yu. Tomoko sits in her chair before class as usual, but when she opens her bag, she realizes she forgot her literature book. She always tries not to forget things because she doesn't know what to do in those moments, so she starts to consider her options. Her desk mate is a boy, so she can't ask him to share his book. She doesn't know anyone from another class to borrow a book from, and her only option is to go to the nurse's office to skip class. When she gets up to carry out her plan, the teacher walks into the classroom and it's already too late to escape, so she decides to try to go unnoticed, but the teacher walks around the desks reading the book and sees her without her textbook. He scolds her in front of the whole class and ends up telling her to ask her desk mate to share his book. Since Tomoko is nervous and almost in tears, her classmate takes the first step and asks if she wants to share the book, and Tomoko agrees. At the end of the day, all she can think about is how much she hates old people who enjoy scolding others. When she looks for her umbrella because it's pouring rain, she realizes that someone has taken it, and she gets jealous that such unempathetic people are going on dates while she isn't, so she wishes death upon all of them. Then she realizes that her umbrella was just on the other side. As she walks home, she sees that the rain has swollen the river and is about to overflow, and she stops to enjoy the view. At that moment, a man grabs her by the arm and pulls her away, scolding her because if she keeps watching the river about to overflow from that position, it would end tragically. After crying from the scolding and being lectured by two old people, Tomoko thinks her day couldn't get any worse, but then the wind breaks her umbrella and she has to take shelter under a bus stop. A few seconds later, two boys take shelter in the same spot, sharing the same bad luck of having their umbrellas break. One of them asks Tomoko if her umbrella broke too, and her friend says that maybe she isn't answering because she's shy. Tomoko convinces herself that she's not shy, but rather cheerful, and forces herself to say something to keep the conversation going. Nervously, she can only say that it's raining, and then she punishes herself for saying such a stupid thing. Then, putting in all her effort, Tomoko tries to talk to them, but she speaks so softly that they can't hear her. Embarrassed for trying unsuccessfully, Tomoko decides she needs to leave or she'll start crying. But as she begins to walk away, one of the boys kindly asks if she's sure she wants to go since it's still raining. Tomoko forces herself to say something funny so they see she's a fun girl, but all she can come up with is that she's going to the bathroom to poop. The boy apologizes for asking, and Tomoko rushes to the bathroom, completely embarrassed because she hoped it would be something funny, and clearly it wasn't. After a while, she returns to the bus stop so they don't think she was really in the bathroom, but when she arrives, the boys have already left. Tired from all the energy that anxiety consumed, Tomoko falls asleep in one of the seats at the bus stop. Minutes later, both boys show up and are glad to see she's still there, but they don't have the courage to wake her up, so one of them leaves her an umbrella that he bought just for her because he didn't want to leave her in that state. Then both boys leave with their new umbrellas, and when Tomoko wakes up, she sees the umbrella and decides to use it while thinking about how she wishes that one day a boy would be kind to her. The next day, Tomoko wants to skip class because she doesn't want to be scolded again, plus she has gym class during the second period and she hates gym class, but it's too late to pretend she's sick. In gym class, the girls have to form groups of 5, but no one chooses her, so she sits next to a group of girls who are talking about their psychology test, and Tomoko answers the questions in her mind. Upon hearing the results, she realizes that she has the personality of the little virgin that no one wants, which destroys her self-esteem. Already feeling destroyed, she decides to fantasize about a better life to stop thinking about it. While she fantasizes, she gets so excited that she faints, and they send her to the nurse's office and then home. Tomoko is happy about that and decides to spend the afternoon with her sick brother to catch his cold and skip school the next day too. However, she ends up taking care of him and changing the cloth on his head. When someone knocks on the door, Tomoko answers and gets angry to see that even her brother has girls bringing him homework and asking about his health, while she has no one. Despite the hatred she feels for the whole situation, she continues to take care of her brother until he gets better, but she catches a cold after going to class and her weekend is ruined. Tomoko is up late at night in front of the computer, and when she decides to go to sleep, she finds an article that talks about the best sleeping positions to have wet dreams. Excited, Tomoko follows all the steps outlined in the article. In the dream, she finds herself in a beautiful meadow full of flowers, but soon the dream turns into one of her top 5 nightmares. When she's attacked by insects, Tomoko wakes up in a panic and decides to put even more pressure on her lungs to have the wet dream she's hoping for, but all she gets are nightmares repeating over and over with different animals. Exhausted from waking up in fear, she decides to sleep like any other night. The next day, Tomoko is way too tired because she hasn't slept and ends up dozing off at her desk during a small exam. Unfortunately for him, he finally has the wet dreams he so desired, but only his teacher notices. When she wakes up, she thinks about that dream, and then she hears her classmates talking about how men on the train touch them inappropriately, complaining about it. However, Tomoko is jealous and angry they are complaining, saying they are too attractive. That afternoon, Tomoko imagines being on the train and a guy touching her, wonders why it rarely happens given her firm body. She asks Yu if he has experienced this on the train, and he says he travels with friends to avoid it, and asks why she is asking. That same afternoon at home, Tomoko pretends to be on the train and imagines a guy touching her from behind, wondering why it doesn't happen more often since she has a pretty firm body. Then she calls Yu to ask if he's ever experienced something similar on the train, and he explains that he always travels with friends specifically to avoid those situations and asks what brings her to consult. To hide her morbid curiosity, she comments about being touched on the train, worrying Yu, who warns her about the dangers of traveling alone. After hanging up, Tomoko realizes the risks pretty girls face on trains and wonders if high school girls share this experience. She seems to grasp the seriousness of the issue. The next day, she thinks violated women are seen as more attractive. During the journey, squeezed by the crowd, she feels something hard hit her groin and regrets wishing for male attention. When the train reaches the next station, she tries to escape but is pushed back by the crowd. So in the middle of the journey, completely squeezed between other bodies because that's how public transport works, she feels something hard and long hit her groin. Then she realizes that someone is touching her, and she regrets having wished so much to be touched by a man on the train. When the train arrives at the next station, Tomoko decides it's the perfect moment to escape, but she's pushed back by the huge wave of people entering the new station. This movement only makes the pain down there even more intense, and she's about to cry. Then she feels that the thing between her legs, besides being hard, is bent upwards, and she wonders if that's really how men's things are. The pain is unbearable, and Tomoko decides to run out at the next station to escape the perpetrator. As she gets off the train and shouts that someone was touching her, a girl apologizes because what she had between her legs was actually a hinata, which is a type of sword, or at least that's what Wikipedia says. Days later, she hears her classmates talking about swimsuits as summer is approaching. After her envious and dark thoughts, Tomoko realizes that the girls' shirts are see-through and she can see a little underneath. But she decides that she will also buy some cute underwear, the cheap and basic ones her mom usually gets her. The next day, she meets up with Yu to go shopping for underwear together and can't help but admire her beautiful friend. Tomoko gets so awkward in the women's underwear store that even Yu feels a bit scared, but she's so nice that she doesn't say anything and just helps her buy pretty underwear. At home, she thinks it would be very embarrassing if her family saw the panties in the laundry basket and decides not to wear them. The next day in class, she thinks she has lost her underwear, but when the heat starts making her sweat, she wipes her forehead and realizes she has wiped it with her underwear in front of a classmate who also saw the whole situation. Tomoko is so embarrassed that when she leaves school, she needs to take a breather, so she goes to her usual manga spot and wins a ticket, which she later uses to win one of those toys for women. At home, she uses the toy as a neck massager while watching her manga with scantily clad boys, eventually falling asleep. When her dad enters her room to tell her there's cake, he sees the vibrating toy and the shirtless boys on the screen, and he decides to pretend he didn't see anything and tucks Tomoko into bed as if she were a little girl and not a pervert. After 3 months of starting high school, Tomoko is having a crisis because she still isn't a popular girl, which only means she has a fate to be an unpopular girl. Anyway, she decides to be strong and keep trying to be popular without falling deeper into madness. While watching one of her favorite shows, she realizes that cute characters can be serious, quiet, and expressionless, yet still be loved, so she decides to adopt that personality, even though it's already a bit of her real personality. The next day, she tries to put it into practice, starting with her family. However, that lack of expression, combined with the fact that she drank Tomoki's drink, only earns her big marks on her face from her brother's hand. In high school, she maintains her silence and lack of expression, but it's not a day very different from the others since no one pays attention to her. Then she realizes that it's obvious she'll be quiet if no one talks to her, and that attractive silence only works if someone wants to talk to you. Thinking about this, she's about to start crying, which would ruin her lack of expression, but she manages to hold it together. As she leaves school, she passes by a cafe and remembers how pretty Yu looked being nice to everyone, so she decides that she would also look like a cool girl if she could casually have a coffee. When ordering the coffee, she tries to have both personalities and ends up panicking and messing up her order. So she ends up with an extremely large cup of coffee, but she decides to go ahead with her plan and looks like a carefree girl drinking coffee. However, when she tries the coffee, she realizes it's too bitter and she doesn't like it. So she decides to add chocolate and honey, but she doesn't control the amounts well, and it ends up being disgustingly sweet. Defeated by the idea of being a cool girl drinking coffee because the coffee is ugly and she's not cool, she decides to leave. But when she gets up from her chair, she trips and falls to the floor, spilling her coffee as well, catching the attention of the cute guy at the counter and causing a high level of embarrassment for our protagonist. The next day, she hears her classmates talking about the photos they've taken in the photo booth and realizes that guys actually like the girl's cute smiles. So she decides to take pictures in that booth with Yu, but when she calls her to set up a meeting, Yu tells her she's busy and Tomoko feels disappointed. However, she doesn't give up on her plan and asks her older brother to go take pictures with her, but he says he doesn't want to. Since she has no one else to ask, Tomoko decides to go to the photo booth by herself. After the first photo, she starts to feel embarrassed about taking pictures alone, and even though she tries to follow the poses of the girl giving her instructions, the photos turn out worse than the last. Tomoko regrets spending so much money on this. The next day, she sees on TV that what's most important isn't how you look but how you speak. The girl shares that she perfected her speaking skills by working in a cabaret, and Tomoko thinks it's the perfect place because not only will she improve her social skills, but she'll also be in an environment surrounded by easygoing people. However, to get into the cabaret, she needs to demonstrate her skills first, so she buys a lighter, imagining that she'll have to light the cigarettes of the men who go to the cabaret. Even though she doesn't light anyone's cigarette, she manages to develop the skill of lighting the lighter itself. After perfecting her skills, Tomoko decides to go to the city's red light district to find work at the cabaret. However, when she arrives and sees the place up close, she gets scared to death when a man walks by her trying to talk to another woman. Tomoko decides that this isn't her place and heads straight home, realizing that this isn't a life for her. As usual, Tomoko spends her nights playing her dating simulators. After finishing one of them, she decides to talk to her brother about how relationships are about how much you can love someone and how all of this depends on fate and you have to let it flow. But once it happens, love will make any woman shine. Hearing all this, Tomoki can only think that his sister is really stupid. The next day, Tomoko wakes up looking so stunning that even her mother notices. And by stunning, I mean she doesn't have her usual dark circles, which really changes her appearance a lot. At school, Tomoko realizes that there are only 5 days left until the semester ends, and she still hasn't found anyone to go see the fireworks with. In all the previous years, she went with Yu, but now that her friend has a boyfriend, she'll probably go with him. When she goes to the bathroom and looks in the mirror for the first time all day, Tomoko realizes that she actually looks prettier than usual. Well, she's actually a little less ugly. So she buys a magazine for girls and reads that girls secrete female hormones when they're in love, which makes them tend to look prettier, as the pheromones make their skin glow and also affect their bust and hips. The moment when they secrete the most pheromones is during relationships. So Tomoko realizes that she's had a light romance, a casual relationship while playing her dating games, and that's why she's been secreting female pheromones, making her look prettier. In other words, if you experience romance D frequently, at some point you'll be so pretty that you'll become popular in the D world too. Tomoko spends the whole night playing games without taking a shower, and the next day she wakes up just as dangerous, furious, but with pretty dirty hair. While having breakfast, she hears on the TV that her horoscope says the color black will bring her luck. Guided by that, Tomoko buys a diet soda because its packaging is black, but it explodes in her face, soaking all her hair. Later, she plays with some black ants, but they end up crawling into her pants, giving her a tough time. While she's thinking about her bad luck, a boy sees an ant climbing up Tomoko's shirt and approaches to remove it. Feeling someone touch her back, Tomoko turns around and the boy tries to tell her that he wanted to help, but he ends up leaving a bit scared by Tomoko's reaction. However, she thinks he's a guy who wanted to flirt with her. In class, her desk mate sees an ant crawling up her arm and tries to get Tomoko's attention to warn her, but when she turns to him, the ant has disappeared, so the guy decides not to say anything. Tomoko also interprets this as a sign of interest from the boy, and then our protagonist leaves school feeling totally happy, because even though she hasn't had much luck during the semester, with just 4 days left until classes end, 2 guys have wanted to approach her. Finally, the last day of the semester has arrived, as well as the night of the fireworks. Tomoko feels sad because she has no one to watch the fireworks with, but she decides that she wants something different for herself, so she will find someone to go with. So she heads to the library, claiming that everyone there is a loser and will want to go out with her. First, she tries to approach a girl, but when she sees that the girl's friends are looking for her, she drops that option. Then he turns to the only other person there, a Yusen boy with glasses. Tomoko pretends to receive a call from her boyfriend, canceling their plans to watch the fireworks, and makes it clear that now that she's single, she can go watch the fireworks with anyone. Once the stage is set, all that's left is to wait for the guy to come over and ask her out. After 3 hours in the library waiting for the invitation, she realizes that the guy has left. Totally defeated, she decides to go watch the fireworks from the rooftop of the building like she does every year. As she goes up, she notices that there's a hotel there, but she doesn't pay much attention to it. Then some young teachers a few years younger climb up and she's about to leave when she asks if she can stay with them to watch the fireworks. The boys tell her it's no problem, and then Tomoko finds out that they come up there to watch people from the motels having sex, not to see the fireworks. In reality, Tomoko prefers the first option since it's not something you see in dating sims. Vacation arrives, and Tomoko spends her days reading manga, watching TV, browsing videos online, and playing video games. Even though she seems bored before going to sleep, she tries to convince herself that if she can do this every time, she'll have a great time and that she's a very happy person with her lifestyle. No, not really. On the 5th day of vacation, Tomoko is just lying on the floor, and when she looks outside, she remembers that she has no reason to go out. Then she hears Tomoki in his room playing with his friends and having fun, which puts her in a bad mood, but it doesn't motivate her to find something else to do. At the end of the 6th day of vacation, Tomoko can no longer lie to herself and panics at night, realizing that she's not doing anything with her life and hoping someone will save her. Tomoki, who hears the complaints from the other side of the wall, just asks her to stop crying, as he has no intention of helping her. It's already the 7th day of vacation, and Tomoko decides that she will do something to change her vacation and make it fun, so she decides to search the internet at 5 a.m. How to enjoy vacation alone, however, she dismisses each and every option because she doesn't like insects, has already seen the fireworks, or for whatever reason. Without realizing it, since she's already browsing the internet, she continues her routine of playing video games until sunset. Realizing this, she panics again and sees something that catches her attention. Live streaming. Without thinking twice, she buys a webcam that arrives the same day, determined to do her own live stream, making videos for otakus and unemployed people, and thus become the mysterious and pretty live streamer on Nico. When she turns on the camera and sees herself as others would, she realizes she has too many dark circles under her eyes, and it's not the image she wants to show the world, so she decides to wear a mask and puts on a face mask with some glasses so that no one knows it's her. Through the crack in the door, Tomoko watches her sister in that state, and Zoro looks at her disappointed. As Tomoko starts the live stream and has some viewers, when they begin to ask her questions or interact with her, Tomoko gets nervous and shy and doesn't know how to respond. The audience starts urging her to at least say something, but in a panic attack, Tomoko ends up shutting down the stream without saying a single word. Defeated, she realizes that this isn't for her and lies down on her bed. On the 8th day, she decides that her true callings are reading manga and playing video games because that's who she is. Then she remembers that she has a meet and greet, a short recording session she won by buying the first edition of one of her favorite animes. Reading the fine print, she learns that a short recording session is a live recording that will be done on any line she wants, right in front of her, and she is allowed to bring her own recording device. She starts searching online to figure out which line to ask them to record and ends up reading about ghost stories and horror as usual. It's nighttime, so she decides to sleep because she has an event the next day and can't stay up late. But her bladder is full, the bathroom is far, and she's scared to go alone since she's read too many ghost stories. After holding it in, she realizes she won't sleep unless she goes. With no choice, she wakes her brother at 3 a.m. to accompany her, threatening to pee in Tomoki's room if he doesn't. The next day is the event, and there's a long line of girls waiting for their recordings. To accompany her to the bathroom, threatening him that if he doesn't accompany her, she will urinate right there in Tomoki's room. The next day is the event, and there's a long line of girls waiting to get their recordings done. Tomoko is in love with the actor because he's the star of all the stories she watches. She always feels embarrassed at the thought of having him record "I love Tomoko," but she's determined to do it. Tomoko hears a girl ask the actor for a risque message. She panics and requests lines. The actor obliges, leaving the girl speechless. When it's her turn, she panics and asks him to record lines for almost all her characters, from something sweet to something a bit risque. The actor does it without any shame, but all the girls behind her are left speechless seeing that Tomoko has not an ounce of embarrassment in her body for asking something so bold. In the following days, Tomoko listens to the recording and her excitement is off the charts. She decides to use the actor's lines and her recordings to create a story where she's the main character. Using her live stream equipment, she records a steamy story with the actor. Her mom walks in to call her for dinner and hears the creation but leaves without a word. Using the equipment she bought for the live stream, she records herself and creates a totally steamy story between her and the actor. At that moment, her mom walks in to call her down for dinner and hears the whole twisted creation of her daughter, but she decides to play dumb and leaves without saying a word. Another day, Tomoko lights some fireworks and asks Tomoki to watch her play with them, to which her brother agrees. Momoko receives terrible news while having her breakfast, as her little cousin Ki is coming to visit like she does every vacation. Our protagonist adores her cousin, but for years she lied about her love life because Ki always idolized her and she didn't want to let her down. However, now that she's in middle school, she'll quickly realize that our protagonist is a total failure. She wears kids' clothes, has pale skin, and her speech shows innocence. Tomoko wants to impress her cousin by becoming a high school easy girl. She calls you, now a flirt. Not wanting to disappoint her cousin, Tomoko decides to become a high school easy girl to impress her. She calls you, a recent flirt, but you is at the beach and can't help. With no other option, Tomoko heads to the mall to change her wardrobe, copying middle school girls' outfits, and buys a sleeveless top and mini skirt. With no other option, Tomoko decides to learn on her own and heads to the mall to make some changes to her wardrobe. So she copies the outfits that middle school girls wear and ends up buying a sleeveless top and a mini skirt. Dressed like that, she looks really cute, but she needs something more to prove she's not a goody two-shoes. Hippies. She tries to do it herself, but they vanish too fast. Seeing her mom's vacuum, she uses it, leaving marks. Her mom warns they could scar. Tomoko snaps and gets slapped, then wears a long-sleeved shirt. Her mom sees vacuum marks and scolds her for scars. Tomoko panics, snaps back, and gets slapped, leaving A. When she panics, Tomoko snaps at her mom, which earns her a slap that leaves her face marked and forces her to put on a long-sleeved shirt to hide those marks from her little cousin. Ki gets excited to see her cousin, but she's so worried about the slap mark that she doesn't even notice the vacuum marks. Later, Ki asks Tomoko to go with her to the library to look for a book she needs for studying. Before entering, she tells her that she's excited to hear new stories about her boyfriend. Tomoko gets nervous because she had never thought about stories involving her boyfriends. While Ki searches for her book, a guy approaches. Tomoko recognizes him from the rainy bus stop meeting. She recalls their awkward chat. He reminds her of the umbrella he bought. Tomoko blushes. Tomoko feels embarrassed recalling her awkward interaction, where she talked about poop and other things. The guy mentions the umbrella he bought for her to get home dry. Tomoko blushes, thinking he finds her attractive and offers to repay him, but he insists it's unnecessary. He introduces himself as Kosaka and asks for her name. When Tomoko tells him, Kosaka mishears it as Momoko. Tomoko, imagining a romance, realizes she have to be called Momoko if they dated. Kosaka continues speaking kindly, noting they live nearby. Tomoko, who has already created an entire love story in her head, realizes that if they start dating, she will have to use the name Momoko forever. Kosaka continues talking kindly and comes to the conclusion that they live nearby. Before he leaves to continue studying, he says goodbye to Tomoko with a "see you later," which in her anxious mind means they'll be seeing each other every day from now on. Later, Ki asks Tomoko if the guy she saw her talking to is her boyfriend, and Tomoko confidently assures her that he is. The next day, they both head to the library and see Kosaka talking really closely with another girl. Tomoko is obviously having one of her panic attacks, but when she goes to the bathroom to calm down, she thinks to herself that maybe if Kosaka has a girlfriend, she can talk to him without getting nervous and make a new friend. However, since Ki thinks he's her boyfriend, she decides to use the time Tomoko is in the bathroom to talk to Kosaka. She tells him that she doesn't think it's right for him to be with another girl if he's dating Tomoko. Our protagonist sees this situation and asks Ki to talk to Kosaka alone. Since Tomoko knows that she can't make up any excuses anymore, she just kneels on the floor to explain the situation and apologize. Kosaka forgives her, although he clearly looks at her strangely, because Tomoko is acting a bit crazy. Meanwhile, her cousin Ki, worried about her older cousin, approaches and sees the girl she admires so much kneeling and begging her boyfriend who cheated on her, and at that moment, something inside her breaks. Later, Tomoko tells Ki that she dumped Kosaka for cheating on her, but she realizes something has happened because her cousin's gaze is different now, and she's lost that sweet look she used to have. To improve the situation, Tomoko decides to take her somewhere and buy her anything she wants. So, a group of kids gathers around Tomoko, calling her the queen because she's the best magic card player out there. His heart breaks as he sees Tomoko's true personality, cold and tough, contrasting her sweet act with the guys. It breaks more when he sees her cheating against younger kids. Tomoko then gives him candy, asking if she looked cool playing cards, trying to show him that side. This creates a sense of affection in Ki, who realizes Tomoko's true sweet personality. Then, Tomoko gives him some candy and asks if she looked cool playing the cards, since she tried to be cool to show him that side of herself. This creates a huge sense of affection in Ki, who realizes Tomoko's true and sweet personality. Before leaving, her cousin tells her that next time they should meet at her house so she can do something nice for Tomoko. There are only 10 days left of summer vacation, and Tomoko hasn't done anything more interesting than recording pervy stuff with the audios she won and getting humiliated in front of her little cousin. However, she still has a plan ahead, a meeting to go to the movies with you. Excited, Tomoko decides to do some research ahead of time to decide which movie to watch. Just as she's about to pick out the perfect outfit for her girls' night out, she gets a call from you telling her that he won't be able to go to the movies. Tomoko's mind begins to rethink each of the things she did, since some of them caused you to lose interest in their friendship. You explain she has to help at her uncle's cafe. You apologizes for canceling last minute, promising Tomoko a cake. 2 days later, Tomoko goes to the cafe, sees everyone in couples or with friends, and you waves from a distance. You apologizes for having to cancel at the last minute, but she assures Tomoko that she'll bring her a cake to make up for canceling their movie outing. 2 days later, Tomoko heads to the cafe, and seeing everyone there, whether in couples or with friends, she wants to run away, but you waves to her from a distance, and she feels forced to go in. While reading the menu, she doesn't recognize any of the cakes because they all have French names, so she decides to just order whatever. While you serves customers, Tomoko realizes that the difference between her and you is that Tomoko stays home playing video games while you works at a trendy cafe, where fashionable people go and they serve trendy pastries. After spending the day there, Tomoko decides that she still has a week to change her life and she's going to do something about it. That night, she tells her mom that she wants to work part-time at a bakery, and her mom is thrilled, saying she can start the next day at a friend's bakery. Tomoko imagines herself serving coffee and cake to handsome guys and having romantic encounters with them, just like in the mangas she reads. However, the next day, all her dreams come crashing down, as it's not a bakery or cafe, but a cake factory where everything is done automatically on a production line, and her face and body are completely covered by safety uniforms. After working all day, she decides to quit because it wasn't what she expected, and her mom, angry, tells her that at least she should make the most of her vacation by helping out with the cleaning around the house. For the first time, she sees her mother's dark side when she refuses to clean, and her mom explains all the work she and Tomoki do to keep the house clean. Tomoko gets mad at her brother and decides to insult him, but with no other option, she heads to the storage room to throw away all the useless stuff that's just collecting dust. While throwing things away, she finds a box of insects and remembers that when they were little, they used to play hide and seek with bugs with Tomoki. Then she finds one of Tomoki's journals and decides to read it to make fun of him, but instead, she discovers that little Tomoki only wrote about how wonderful his big sister was and how much he admired her. Tomoko feels touched and decides to talk to her brother, but Tomoki has gone to the observatory to watch the meteor shower. Our protagonist feels sad that summer vacation is coming to an end, and to avoid being alone at home, she decides to buy some instant ramen and watch the meteor shower in the park. As she cries, she sees a shooting star and wishes for a guy to watch the shooting stars with. Then a little male kitten appears and sits next to her to watch the stars, and Tomoko decides to scoop him up in her arms. The new semester begins and Tomoko is ready to face it with great optimism. The previous semester was just a trial run, now she's in the real game. When seating arrangements are assigned, Tomoko ends up in the middle. Everyone is chatting, and a classmate greets her for the first time, admitting it's their first conversation. Others suggest they should talk to her more. You'd think this is a great start for Tomoko, but she feels anxious and stressed, fearing she'll die from it. She recalls last semester's luck sitting in the back corner, where she could avoid being seen and browse websites freely. Her first challenge is lunch, as she dislikes eating surrounded by many people, but she must face it. So she realizes that last semester she was really lucky sitting in the corner of the classroom at the back, because there she didn't have to worry about being seen by the people behind or beside her, and she could even browse weird websites without any problem. Her first obstacle is lunch. She dislikes eating with many people, but must face it. At her spot, another girl has taken her seat, so introverted Tomoko eats elsewhere. The roof is closed, so she finds hidden desks to eat and watch videos alone. She does this for weeks, happy in isolation, until one day she finds the desks removed. When she tries to eat on the roof, she realizes it's closed, so she decides to sit at some hidden desks where no one goes, because there she can be herself and eat and watch videos without any problem. She does this for several weeks, where she's happy in her own isolation, but then one day she arrives and finds that all the desks have been removed. Feeling down, Tomoko skips lunch and faints from hunger during gym class. After school, she sees a couple fail to win a giant teddy bear from a claw machine. Tomoko wins it with 2 tokens, but feels lonelier as her classmates hang out. After class, she considers joining a club, but finds none appealing. She proposes a new club, the Daily Life Club, for fun and happiness in everyday life. Activities aren't set, but everyone will work hard. So she thinks she should join a club, but all the ones she sees seem unappealing. So she grabs a form to propose a new club and decides to call it the Daily Life Club, which is meant to be a club for doing fun things and seeking happiness in everyday life. The activities haven't been decided yet, but everyone will have to work hard. While filling out the form, she lies down thinking that if she manages to participate in the cultural festival with her club, she won't have to help with the class preparations. After a few weeks without any response, she imagines her ideal club, where she's with 2 other people sharing tea and time together, but without defining a specific activity, just enjoying their time together. As I said, she imagines it because it never actually happens, and she has to be part of the class preparations for the cultural festival, where they've decided to do a cafe cosplay. Then we find out that her club has been rejected by the student council because the description wasn't clear enough. The Firefly Light Festival begins, and all the students pitch in to make it as great as possible. Tomoko's class splits up the tasks to color posters, cut out signs, and other stuff. Our protagonist can only think about wanting to go home, but at the same time, it frustrates her to see everyone having fun while she's left with nothing to do. Then she hears 2 classmates looking for someone to cut some posters, and shyly, Tomoko says she can do it. The girls, a bit awkward, insist that it's not necessary since 2 other classmates aren't doing anything and they'll give the job to them instead. Tomoko knows that if she doesn't muster up the courage to ask for things, she'll never have anything to do, so she insists once more, even shyly, that she's not doing anything and she's really good at cutting things. The girls change their attitude, and to one who is friendlier, they hand over the posters and explain how she needs to cut them. Tomoko plans to delay tasks. 2 guys join her, and she gets annoyed as they work efficiently, finishing before lunch. A girl brings cosplay outfits for the cafe, and Tomoko imagines wearing them. Lost in thought, she doesn't notice cutting her hand. Tomoko got annoyed because the guys work well, and they'll finish before lunch, which means they'll have to take on another task. Minutes later, a girl enters the classroom with cosplay outfits for the cafe. Tomoko, being an otaku, imagines herself in each outfit. She gets so lost in thought that she accidentally cuts her hand. Rushing to the nurse's office, she bumps into another girl and helps her with her papers. The girl notices Tomoko's injury and takes her to the nurse, staying until it's clear it's not serious. She introduces herself as the cultural festival committee head and leaves. Tomoko decides not to help her class anymore, but when she hears about needing help in the gym, she decides to assist. Then she introduces herself as the head of the Cultural Festival Planning Committee and leaves. Tomoko decides that she won't help out in her class anymore, and when she hears they need help arranging chairs in the gym, she decides to pitch in with that. The head of the planning committee sees her there and thanks her for helping, greeting her with a huge smile and wishing her a fun festival. That kindness from the director rubs off on Tomoko, who decides that she will work hard to make the festival fun. However, when she goes to her classroom to help, she realizes that they've already finished everything. Before leaving, she decides to take one of the cosplay costumes to try it on and take some pictures. On the day of the festival, Tomoko has nothing to do, so she decides to buy takoyaki from one of the other booths. Then she watches the wind instrument performance from another class, and when it's the light music club's turn, she realizes that the takoyaki she ate isn't sitting well with her, and she has to rush to the bathroom to throw it all up. Seeing her sitting alone, the committee director asks if she's okay, and Tomoko, feeling judged, insists that her turn to work is the next day. Yu visits Tomoko's class. She asks about dressing up, but Tomoko avoids it. They spend the day at events, sharing food. Tomoko finds festivals fun with a friend. Yu leaves, and Tomoko feels sad. After spending the day together trying out events and sharing food, Tomoko realizes that festivals can be fun when shared with a friend. Yu has to leave, and after saying goodbye, Tomoko is sad. The committee director sees her looking sad and decides to borrow the festival mascot costume. Disguised, and without Tomoko noticing, she hands her a balloon and gives her a hug that makes our girl smile. With the end of the festival, Tomoko's life returns to normal, her usual routine, her usual sitting habit, and her usual loneliness. As the year ends, Tomoko sees it wasn't as she thought. No part days, no compliments, no friends. She uses the last third of her first year to plan. She fills out future plans forms. When he begins to remember what actually happened, it only makes things worse, because as we saw, it was not a good year. Not wanting to sink into sadness and despair, she decides that she still has a third of her first year left, so she'll start making future plans, literally. She begins filling out the future plans forms that the school hands out. While filling out the questionnaire and guided by her best subjects, she decides to take the path of liberal arts, since no one knows better than her what it means to be a writer or a character in a story. So she calls her friend Yu, who tells her that she's going to pursue liberal arts and reminds Tomoko that when they were kids, she wanted to be a gun trafficker in Japan. Remembering those things makes our girl feel embarrassed, but she decides again to stop dwelling on the past and focus on the future. The next day at school, she spots the committee president from a distance and wonders whether to say hi or not. Then another girl comes over to talk to her, and Tomoko finds out that the president's name is Aimi. Hearing that she's popular, Tomoko follows her and realizes that she's kind and sociable, everything that Tomoko feels she lacks. The first step to improving is knowing what her classmates say about her. So during the break between classes, she decides to set up a hidden recorder to listen to how they talk about her. However, when she listens to it, she realizes that they don't even talk about her at all. Everyone acts like she doesn't exist. So, she's going to spend another semester being nothing and nobody. At that moment, the whole class starts screaming because there's a cockroach, and Tomoko imagines that if she manages to kill it, she would be applauded. But after she does it, the only thing she gets is her classmates saying that the way she killed the cockroach was a bit scary. Tomoko thinks about talking to Aimi to ask how to be popular, but as she approaches her and starts to speak, a gust of wind lifts her skirt, making her super nervous, and she bolts. At that moment, Aimi's friends show up, asking what happened. Aimi tells her friends that there's a cute first-year girl who always seems like she's about to do something, so she can't take her eyes off her. Yuki and Tomoko find themselves sitting around a table in a strange place, kind of out of time, and they start talking about how big Yu's chest is. Even though the situation is weird, they keep talking about Yu's chest over and over. Tomoko wears glasses, which makes her look weird, and she insists that they're creating this content to keep the audience entertained, because sometimes you have to feed the pigs. Our girl insists that to make this better, they need to change some behaviors. You might be a bit scatterbrained, but at the same time, she's going to be kind of mean. T, an elite student, plays a lowly character. Tomoko gets jealous. You must break up with her boyfriend. Tomoko tries writing another character, but Ki insists it's too late and she must face life. Also, for that to work, Yu has to break up with her boyfriend because being a mistress is frowned upon. Tomoko tries to write about another character, but Ki tells her it's too late to keep doing that and she needs to face life head-on. So it seems like none of what happened before makes any sense because we're back in the same old high school. Now the main character is a lonely guy with glasses, an otaku who thinks everyone else is an idiot, so he can't talk to them. As he walks through the halls, he can't help but daydream about scenes from mangas and animes, like being attacked by a beautiful girl with black hair or saving an angelic girl. But of course, those things don't really happen. As he heads to the rooftop, he runs into a beautiful girl with dark circles under her eyes. This girl makes a big leap and tells the guy with glasses that he can't be there because it's dangerous and no normal person should be involved in a situation of such high stakes. She positions herself there because she has to use the sniper to take out the anti-cops. The guy leaves, but in class, he can't stop thinking about the beautiful girl with dark circles he ran into hours earlier. In the following days, the guy thinks he sees the girl repeatedly and even tries to go up to the rooftop, but he finds it locked. One of those times, he manages to open the door, and when he goes up, he runs into the girl again, who scolds him for trying to come up despite the odds. But she also hints that he should do the exact opposite of what they tell him. So she tells him that they are human weapons who were trained from childhood based on command, although there are inconsistencies since there are missing anti-cops in this story. In the end, the girl tells the guy that he shouldn't go to school the next day for anything in the world. This guy wonders if he should go, since she must understand that he has to do the exact opposite of what they tell him. Even though he's got a cold, he decides to go anyway, wearing a mask, and in the halls, he hears them calling Tomoko to the office. When he tries to go to the rooftop, he finds it locked again and doesn't know what to do because he still doesn't quite understand the girl, but he wants to keep seeing her despite everything. One day, he accidentally bumps into a second-year Tomoko, but neither of them pays attention to the other. Tomoko is talking to Yu and another friend from middle school. When they try to go to the rooftop, it's locked, but a teacher drops the key, and he manages to grab it while enjoying the solitude and privacy of the rooftop. The guy with glasses, and then the whole situation narrated at the beginning happens, but from Tomoko's perspective, which isn't as epic, but a bit more embarrassing. The next day, Tomoko feels happy because her performance was so good that the first-year guy totally bought it. So she decides to keep playing along with that and creates the story she told him, all about human weapons and anti-cops and blah blah, hoping he'll show up. The next day, the guy doesn't show up and Tomoko gets locked on the rooftop with no battery on her phone. Tomoko is no longer the dangerous and sensual character she created to play with the first-year guy. Now she's just a desperate teenager locked on a rooftop. She finally gets saved because the teacher was on duty, and when he went up to the rooftop, he found her there, which earned her a big scolding. And that's the end of what seemed like it was going to be a love story, but it never was. Tomoko and the guy with glasses never saw each other again, even though they never stopped thinking about each other. And then we find out that the guy's name was Omatsu and that he's one of Tomoki 2000's best friends.